good wherever you are, actually, because it's evening here. It may not be evening there. I'm going for a walk right now, so let me take you with me to tell you about all of the insane breaking news, insane, intense, tragic news, and a ton of it breaking, and all of that as we sit here waiting for more. Like, for instance, waiting for retaliatory attacks on Israel for what has just happened. Okay, so let me start at the top. So, first of all, uh, let's go back to Saturday evening. Regular weekend day, when suddenly a barrage of rockets from Hezbollah at the north of Israel. There were about 30, and amid that 30, one of them actually uh, landed on a soccer field. 12 children were killed. Excuse me, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. 12 children killed, 30 wounded, because they couldn't make it to the shelter in time. There were only a matter of seconds. Even if you look at the pictures of the shelter itself, it has shrapnel, and the right outside, the bikes right outside the shelter were burnt to a crisp. So I don't even know if any kids made it to the shelter. 12 of them were killed, all of them between the ages of 10 to 16. So we're talking young kids, soccer fields, Saturday afternoon. Absolutely tragic and horrible. So that was, according to the IDF, definitely a rocket from Hezbollah. And that was, they immediately, so here's the interesting thing. Once the news came out that the rocket wasn't intercepted, as it usually is, by Israel, and that it killed children, and not only children, but Arabic-speaking Druze children, Hezbollah suddenly was like, oh, wait, we didn't do it. We didn't send the rocket over. They didn't not claim responsibility for the other 29 rockets that were launched around the same time. But they just tried to not claim responsibility for the one rocket that was extremely deadly. And this was the deadliest attack for Israeli civilians since October 7th. So this, of course, brings up a lot of interesting questions, like who are the Druze people? And, this Arabic-speaking minority, they have this secretive religion that's sort of like an offshoot of Islam. And I did an interview with a Druze man who's like a former retired ambassador, former mayor, and he explains like the pillars of the Druze religion, and one of it has to do with the land. So that's why you'll find Druze in Israel having a different opinion than the Druze in Lebanon, and the Druze in Israel will serve in the Israeli army and support the state of Israel, whereas the Druze in Lebanon will go along with the Lebanese policy, which is to be anti-Israel. So anyway, depends where they are. They're loyal to the state that they're in. So it's a fascinating. It's just, anyway, better to listen to him than to listen to me try to explain it. And in any case, we have so much more anyway to talk about. So that was Saturday. So it was really a sobering thing for all of Israel, and there were thousands. I think their number was 100,000 people who attended the funerals. There were 11 funerals in one day, and the 12th was the next day after they were able to identify the remains of the child. So it was very quiet here, but everybody knew that there would be some kind of response coming from Israel. Israel said, this is not the kind of thing that you let go. Now, there's always a debate among Israelis. By the way, as I'm walking, you can see the signs for the hostages, uh, the Israeli hostages in Gaza. It's been almost 300 days. I think it's 298 or 299 days, and they're still there. So anyway, of course, everybody demands a response, and the debate being that why hasn't Israel responded sooner or harder? By the way, another civilian was killed the very next day in a series of rockets also fired from the north by Hezbollah. So why has there not been more of an Israeli response? And part of the reason for that is that they don't want to escalate into all-out war, because if they do that, then it will be a lot more than 13 civilians killed in one day. So that's one reason. Another reason is that they're still in Gaza. The Israeli army is still there. There's still a war going on there. So that's another reason that full-out war in the north has not been launched. And, not everybody wants it, but some people do. You've got issues of people not living in their homes. Tourism is non-existent in the north. There's a certain a certain number of miles, like from the border with Lebanon into Israel, which are evacuated. So people have been living in hotels for a while. Now, on the other hand, on the Lebanese side, Hezbollah could probably go on for a while. I've mentioned in the past they have like about 100. Hi, Manishma. Hey. Hezbollah has, excuse me as I walk by the pizza party place. Okay. Hezbollah has 150,000 missiles and rockets. So they could go on like this, shoot 30 here, 100 here, 220, whatever. Like, they could just keep doing that. And nobody in Lebanon actually stops them. So they could keep going on like that, whereas Israel has a little bit more pressure to make it safe for residents to go back. So on that note, so how exactly do you respond to some kind of attack that kills 12 children on a soccer field and another civilian the next day? Well, last night there was, I don't remember what time when I was watching this. We're talking like 24 hours ago, something like that. You heard there was an attack in Beirut. Now, Beirut is off limits. And let me just back up a step further. Once this attack on the kids occurred, there was talk that there was like in Lebanon, everybody was like, embassies are saying, get out, if you're, citizens, all our citizens of this country, that country, get out. Airlines canceled their flights. The all of Beirut was basically shut down. So then all of a sudden, last night, you hear of an explosion in Beirut. Now, Beirut is generally off limits, I would say, in a way, off limits. Like, it's the capital, and most of the attacks are happening like right over the border in southern Lebanon. I mean, there's a few others, but they're not the norm. So for an explosion to happen in Beirut, everybody was suddenly paying attention. And it turns out that Hezbollah's number 2 was in a building that targeted strike in that building, took out the building. So Israel immediately, which is rare, took credit and said, and Fuad Shukr, however you say his name, was killed. Now, this is extremely rare for Israel to, one, take credit, and two, to immediately say he's killed. Now, Hezbollah did not say that he was killed until, actually, they still haven't. It's 24 hours later. They haven't said it yet. They said they haven't found the body, and there are just reports coming out now that his body was found under the rubble, but Hezbollah still hasn't admitted it or said it or said, verified that. And yet Israel has already said, we did it and we know he's dead. So that says a lot about the type of strike that this was, that Israel probably had really good information about where he was, and that probably means they have information on the ground. But there was actually another assassination that happened just hours later. Now, I understand if you watch the news at all, you already know what I'm talking about. But sometime around 2 a.m. Israel time, there was an assassination of the Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, in Iran. So somehow, now I said I had to correct myself, not Israel, not Israel. Everybody's blaming Israel. Israel has not taken credit for this, unlike the one with the Hezbollah number 2. The Hamas number 1, who lives in Qatar, in a, he's a millionaire and he's living the life in Qatar. So why was he in Iran? Because yesterday was the inauguration or the swearing in of the new Iranian president. And remember, some point in the afternoon, I saw a video of Haniyeh meeting the president, and they were hugging each other, congratulating each other. Now, Hamas and this war that they started on October 7th, particularly, is supported by Iran. Iran gave training, weapons, money to this. Now, Hezbollah, by the way, also, in case you don't know, is a proxy of Iran. So are the Houthis in Yemen. So Iran is sort of running like this proxy war against Israel. So now Ismail Haniyeh from Qatar, where he's not been touched, gets to Tehran, which is like the main, or the head of the octopus, they call him, or they call Iran, gets to Tehran. And there's so many heads of state there. He's not the only one. They're all there for the swearing in. This is a big state ceremony. And he somehow, this projectile, as it was said, some projectile, airborne projectile, went into his bedroom, killed him and his bodyguard. Now, Israel's not saying anything about this. So this one is just a mystery. Of course, every other country is saying, oh yeah, of course it was Israel. And but the fact that it happened on Iranian soil, and it's still not 100% known, who, how, like an airborne, exactly how it was launched, exactly how they knew exactly where he was. And the other thing that this says is that Iran could not defend its guest in the country for a state ceremony. So this one is a little bit mind blowing. I mean, of course, the number 2 in Hezbollah it's also pretty high up there, but then number 1 of Hamas. So now the question is, who is leading Hamas? Haniyeh's sons, by the way, were all killed in Gaza. Well, he's living in Qatar. They were all killed in Gaza during this war. So in the last couple months, they were all killed. And so now he's got no heirs, not that they were necessarily leaders anyway. And I think Khalid Mashal, he's not been around. I don't know where he is or what his connection is, but he used to be the leader of Hamas. Sheikh Yassin many years ago was assassinated in a helicopter strike by Israel. And there's still, the only one we know of that's left is Yahya Sinwar. There's been, he's on the ground in Gaza, the leader of Hamas. Nobody knows what his status is, but nobody's heard from him in a while. And then there's also Mohammed Def, who is a military commander, and there's not been, Israel tried to assassinate him a couple weeks ago, and there's been no credible evidence given that they did. They didn't say they did. It's still one of those that's out there that it's a possibility. So this has been an extremely dramatic week. And what it all means is that now you've got a couple days of mourning for the two leaders, and by different groups in different countries, different people, but you also have the threats that, this has been widely condemned. The two assassinations were widely condemned, especially the one of Hania in Tehran. It was condemned by Russia, by China, of course, Turkey. And Turkey, by the way, Erdogan, earlier, was it this week or last week, said that Turkey could invade Israel, just like it invaded Nagorno-Karabakh, which was a land that was where ethnic Armenians dwelled for thousands of years. And sure enough, it was invaded, but also by Azerbaijan most recently, taken over, and is now Azeri territory, full-on Azeri territory. And the Azeris are allies with Israel. They get their weapons from Israel. The weapons that they use to kill and drive out the Armenians are Israeli weapons. And then you got Erdogan, who is Aliyev's, Azerbaijan's probably top ally, threatening to invade Israel, just like Nagorno-Karabakh was invaded with Israeli weapons. So, very complicated mix of politics going on. I'm trying to think if there's any other interesting things. I don't know let me see. If you guys have anything, are there chats? There are chats. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't see. Okay. Patrick, thank you. I know it's horrific news, but it needs to all be out there. And if you go to my website, Nick Jan, which is NICJAN, I've got links to a little bit more detail. I mean, the last one I wrote really in a hurry, but there's a new podcast episode, and I really would want to do more about some of the stuff that's happened, which I will in the coming days. But there's some updates there. Thank you for your prayers. I can't see if that's Eric or Brock. Wow. Funny glasses. Okay. And Carol. Hi, Carol. What is known about the attack in Tehran? Yeah, I don't know how much we know yet, except it only took out 2 people, apparently only 2 people. So it was very precision. So here's a question I have. If it was Israel, has good enough intelligence to kill their enemy in his bed, in his hotel or his apartment room in Tehran, in which Israel has no presence whatsoever, how could they not have known about October 7th? So how does that happen? I mean, the intelligence is so good that you're out there, and you can pinpoint where the number 1 of Hamas is in Tehran, or where the number 2 of Hezbollah is in Beirut. But October 7th happens, and the country's overrun by 3,000 nukhbot. Come on, that's the nukhbas, the elite Hamas units. So anyway, that's crazy. Oh, hi, Dad. Now Dad is using Carol's chat. Hi, Mom and Dad. What's going to happen with his hotel suite in Qatar? I don't know, because his children aren't around to inherit it. So I don't know what's going to happen. But actually, here's another thought. So now I just talked about this is all the news, and now we're sitting around waiting for the definitely going to be a retaliation. And so we have to figure, you know, we're wondering, like, buy tickets, don't buy tickets, yeah, whatever. So or will Jerusalem be safe? Will it be another thing like when Iran attacked last time, when it was 300 drones and they were shot down before they did get to these guys right here. I took video, but they were all shot down, and only sadly one person in the country died. It was a Bedouin girl who was killed by shrapnel. So what does this do? Wait, why is the connection lost? No good reason. Well, it says reconnecting, and it always does this while I'm streaming. Always. It's so frustrating. Oh, I'm back. Okay. Thank you for sticking through the reconnecting. Putting on my glasses so I can read your comments. So, okay. So, we talked about the news. We talked about what happened. But here it says connection loss, reconnecting. Ay, ay, ay. Connection back, I hope. Okay. There are still 115 hostages in Gaza. 115 Israelis, or most, I think they're all Israeli. Maybe there's some foreign nationals. There's some dual citizens, but there might also be some foreign workers or something. 115 hostages in Gaza. So that is where Hamas is. And everybody's wondering, number one, what does this do to the potential deal that was in the works? Apparently, it's been in the works for weeks. That was imminent for weeks. I hate the word imminent. Imminent deal to release the hostages. What happens with that? The other thing is there any deal? Will anybody in Hamas even dare to negotiate anything now with Israel after after somebody just offed their leader in Tehran? Will they still make a deal with Israel for the hostages, or worse, will they use the hostages for their own purposes now, or what are they going to do? So now the question is, what is going to happen with the deal for the hostages or with the hostages themselves? So that's a big deal. And the the families here, the hostages, it was very interesting to watch the Israeli media today. So there was a little bit of a sense of euphoria because Israelis are like, oh, we're so good. Oh, wow, look at us. We can assassinate somebody. We have such good intelligence that we can just assassinate people around the world and take out our enemies. And yet that was contrasted with, here's some police on horseback. Contrast that with the interviews that the same news did with the families of the hostages, who sat there and said, great, now what? How much worse is it going to be now? How much harder? If it was hard up to this point to get them out, how much harder is it going to be now to get them out? And, all along, Israel, the Israeli government, like, when I say government, in Israel, government means the majority or the coalition. The government has constantly said that, hold on. Okay, well, they're preempting the 8 o'clock news. The government, the coalition, has constantly said that a strong military response in Gaza is going to be what gets the hostages, is what brings Hamas to its knees and gets them to agree to a deal. And then they said, Rafah, we have to go into Rafah. And it was a whole big debate, even with America, like, even America was against Israel going into Rafah, and Israel did it anyway. Still didn't bring a deal, didn't even bring an end to the war. In fact, Israel had to split its troops, also go up north to northern Gaza, back to Gaza City, back to Khan Yunis, back to all of these places where it was allegedly under control. And all that was left, despite the fact that they were in Rafah, and they have been in Rafah, and I think they control most of it, no deal, and there's still no sign of the hostages. And I see I'm reconnecting again. Can anybody tell me? Do you hear me? Do you not? So ridiculous, this thing. I think it's Restream. I mean, I like them, but why does it always do this? Still reconnecting. Oh, for me anyway. All right, maybe I'm back. Okay, so anyway, and by the way, if you guys do send comments, sometimes it's on a delay. Now that I actually open the comments and see them, oh my gosh, this is very weird using it on my phone. So anyway, so that is pretty much the story. So the question still being that whether, now you would think if like the military response, a strong military response is going to be what gets out hostages, then you would think that getting the head of the organization, assassinating him in his hotel room, would leave Hamas saying, okay, we surrender, we have no choice. I highly doubt that is going to happen. Hamas is still active and operating in Gaza. There's still, occasionally firing rockets. They're in various cities. They're in okay, it's a bike lane I'm walking in. They are in various cities. It's a very tough battle. It's urban warfare, and so it's not 100% clear how you even determine if you have completely eliminated Hamas. That is not clear how that would actually happen. And I think it was the spokesperson for the Israeli army who said Hamas is an ideology, and you can't eradicate an ideology by killing people. So now, at the same time, there are some Palestinians that are really happy about the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. They don't like Hamas. They don't want Hamas. Even in Gaza, but I've heard people outside of Gaza saying this. So there is a little bit of a split there. And of course, Hamas is the party that rose up to counter Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah party, which is in control in the West Bank, whereas Hamas is now in control in Gaza. So, not that there's anybody really much Fatah left in Gaza, or any opposition party whatsoever in Gaza, but that's the story more or less. So, who's going to take over from Qatar, which is, by the way, where they conduct the negotiations for hostage release / prisoner exchange, Palestinian prisoner release. So it usually takes place in Qatar. So, and I think that's what they said where he's going to be buried. Anyway, there's no clear leader at the moment that I know of in Hamas. And then he wasn't in Gaza anyway. And apparently Yahya Sinwar is still alive and running the show there. But will he rise up to that level? I don't know. So there's still a lot of questions. So anyway, I am going out right now. Somebody's got a birthday party. Actually, look her up, Sarah Tuttle Singer. She is a writer, absolutely hilarious writer. She writes, well, for herself, but also for the Times of Israel. And I met her recently, and she is just a great person, and just really, anyway, I'm going now to the, and then that's it, because who knows what's going to happen. We might be sequestered in our homes after this. So we might as well go out while you can. Give them the 3 days of mourning, and then go to the bomb shelter. So for now, I'm going out. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. And anyway, check out my website for all the stuff, like the YouTube video, the podcast, and for other news like that. Anyway, thanks so much for joining. It was great, and thanks for joining me on